Hi, everybody. Welcome to NewsNite for Friday, March 30th. Great to have you with us this week. Big news for the Soapbox Derby. Will a sponsor finally save the day? Is horse racing headed for an area near the Akron-Canton airport? And what are your rights really if a sex offender moves into your neighborhood? Those stories and more next on NewsNite. Great to have you with us for this final news night of March. A great panel, too, so let's meet them. Steve Hoffman joins us this week from the Akron Beacon-Journal. Great to have Phil Trexler here with us this week, also from the Akron Beacon-Journal. And always great to see freelance contributor and journalist Jody Miller here with us this week. Over the years, we have certainly debated the All-American Soapbox Derby. Everybody loves it in town, but is it worth the investment? We've talked about dollars. Now, money has been floated to keep the organization afloat. This week, they announced they got something they really needed, a major sponsor for multiple years. Is this what they need to save the Derby, at least where it was?
Oh, definitely, I think. And I have to applaud the foresight of First Energy and Tony Alexander for stepping up to the plate, I think, in this particular instance. The Derby has not had a national sponsor for many years now. And don't forget, they're doing an awful lot of reorganization. They changed the board last year. They brought on a new president in Joe Mazer. Corbin Bernson, of course, obviously raised the profile of the Derby nationally with 25 Hill, the movie, which has been very successful. And I think they've done a lot of different things. They have increased, in fact, the number of cities that are going to be participating this year. They have, in fact, sold a lot more cars than they have in the past. And what's happening is, I think, Joe Mazer, in fact, is doing more of an educational bent in terms of sending cars to middle schools and high schools around the country that are using the cars for curriculum projects, for science, technology, math, and gravity types of projects. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a good shot in the arm for the Derby. I hope, like the mayor said at the press conference, I certainly hope that other companies here in this community step up, because there certainly are the Goodyears and the First Merits, and I think the Infocisions and the FedEx Custom Criticals that could, if not give a monetary donation, do something in kind. So I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a part of an overall transformation of the Derby that's been going on for years, and I think it really is becoming a more better organized, more focused organization. I'm particularly excited about the school part of it, this hooking into this whole STEM school concept, which is big, and sort of integrating these cars, using these cars as a project, so you get into the physics of it, the design elements, and you get the kids interested in it from that standpoint. I mean, so it's not just all about winning, which is fun, but also about the technology that's involved in the cars. So it's a good thing. I wish we knew how much money was actually involved, but I'm sure it'll be enough to keep the lights on at the Derby. And as Jody's saying, hopefully also encourage the community to get other companies to get involved.
I think that's one of the things I find disconcerting is the fact that they're not announcing exactly how much money they're getting. There have been a mingling of some public dollars that's been funneled into the Derby to keep it alive, and the fact that they make this grand announcement, but they don't put a price tag on that, I think is a little disconcerting. I think people would appreciate some transparency there, and I'm not sure the harm involved in that.
Why do you think that is? Is it because they didn't get as much as maybe people thought, or because they're going to get a lot more than people thought?
I don't know the motivation.
That is unusual.
There. Yeah, it is very unusual, and I don't understand the motivation behind it. I think it's great that First Energy stepped up, and I agree that other companies you think would, because I think it's great branding to associate your business with the Derby. It's an all-American apple pie and Chevrolet, so to speak. But people are, there's some concerns over the financing of the Derby, and the city has put money in there, and I think it would, just for the sake of transparency, to let the public know exactly where the money stands with First Energy. It's a little disappointing that didn't come out.
Well, it does bring hundreds of families here for 1 week every year. It fills up the hotels. I think the number we've used in the past is $3 million into the economy, and what city in America wouldn't do that? A city the size of Akron put some money into something that would bring in $3 million a year. But Jody, does this set the stage then for other corporations in town to be saying, okay, now it's going to be your turn in a few years to step up and keep this going?
Well, I certainly hope so. It is, as we mentioned, an iconic part of Americana. And it maybe is a throwback to a simpler time, but I think it like you said, it brings so many communities, so many families into this community, and it's a big economic boost to the community. And I think we've got corporate citizens in this town who have always been very generous, and I think now that First Energy is part of it, maybe they also will step up. And maybe it won't be the kind of thing where First Energy does it for 3 years and then Goodyear does it for 3 years. Maybe they can all get on board and share part of this wonderful part of our history.
Yeah, I think a lot of the responsibility for saving the Derby anymore is the Derby's responsibility. And I'm not downplaying First Energy's role. I'm glad they're in. But this idea, Akron has changed. We don't have the huge numbers of huge corporations that we used to. And the ones that we do have are, they got to run a business. So I think it's harder to rely on corporate philanthropy than it used to be. But the Derby is trying to market itself more effectively. They're trying to reach out to the schools. They're trying to, and I think, to me, that's going to be a big, big piece of their future. Their ability to get a broad number of people from all around the country interested in this project and interested in the brand, the whole aura of the Derby. And so it's kind of about marketing, the Derby marketing itself in a more effective way.
And it doesn't have to be a huge amount of money either. I mean, just if a company is willing to put their name behind the Derby brand, I think that in itself helps a lot. And if they've got employees that could provide in-kind volunteer services to help with a variety of things, I think that helps too. So I don't think it's necessarily the dollars per se. I think if it raises the profile of the Derby, that's all for the good.
But why is it so tough to get a national? Everybody who talks about the Derby talks about how it's all American and the Phil Trexler Apple Pie Chevrolet. So why is it so tough?
That's what I don't understand. Is why it is so difficult. You have to question why the reluctance of all these corporations. Goodyear right in your backyard. Why are they so reluctant to hook up with the Derby? I don't get it. It's something that you would think a corporate sponsor would benefit from linking. So there's got to be some sort of reason why there is such a difficult ability to find someone.
But maybe it was a part of just the Derby not being able to market itself the way it should have. And I think that we've touched upon this in our previous conversation about this. Now that maybe they're going with more of an educational bent, helping to use the cars, use the Derby, use the whole building of a kit car as part of the science, technology, and math curriculum, I think that could help to spur some of the companies to come in and say, hey, if you're going to be using this as a way to educate our workforce in the future, it could help.
Yeah, and you got to look at the numbers. I mean, you got to look at the number of participants, the number of cities that are involved, and that. And so, if you're going to spend your scarce resources to help the Derby, you need to satisfy yourself that you're reaching the number of people. So it's sort of like a chicken and the egg thing. And the other thing about our society, I mean, look at the number of outlets, if you will, that are available to kids now. There are all kinds of specialty camps in the summer. There are all kinds of activities, organized activities now. I mean, when I was a kid, we went out in the boulevard and played baseball. Well, today you'd have uniforms and a coach, and you'd be driving all around, playing other teams. Nothing is quite as simple as it used to be.
And maybe the Derby is just, that ship has sailed on it, and obviously the corporations don't get a lot of bang for their buck. I mean, who else across the country is talking about this sponsorship besides Akron? Probably no one.
Well, but don't forget, and to dovetail on what Steve was saying, this is a family activity. This is not just the kind of activity where your child goes out and plays baseball. I mean, the whole family is involved, and we see that when we have all those people come into town at the end of July, and you've got the cars decorated, and the entire family comes. So it's a family activity, and given the way society has changed, that's not the way it was back in the 50s and the 60s.
Well, it's also far less popular as it was in the 50s and 60s, and the numbers have gone down drastically, and I think that's probably...
We'll blame video games for that.
Yeah.
They just weren't doing that. But you talk about families. I want to talk about the one problem families do have with the Derby as we move the conversation out to newsnight.net.
For more NewsNight content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at newsnight.net.
One of the worst-kept secrets in Summit County is that Thistledown horse racing might be coming to CAK, or at least the area right by CAK. Well, that became official this week. The governor says he'd like to see it happen. Could we see horse racing by planes? Has an interesting juxtaposition the picture, I think.
Well, we could, and the problem with this game, to me, the problem with the way this gambling issue is evolving, is it seems to be driven by the companies that own the casinos and own the racetracks, more than by kind of a rational plan. So we have these people who have casinos, and they also have an interest in racetracks, and obviously you want to separate the two. That's what's going on here. You want enough distance. So in this particular case, you might have a racino near Akron-Canton, and then the people in Youngstown who are dying to have either a racetrack or a casino or both are within 50 miles, and so you need exceptions. The rules need to be changed to do this. So the question that comes up in my mind when you start moving and this is going on elsewhere in the state, you have the casino coming up in Toledo. There's a racetrack in Toledo that is going to be moved. And Columbus is in the same situation. Casino in Columbus, nearby racetrack, they want to move it. So it spreads out the gambling. The question that I think is being raised certainly by opponents and also by experts in the industry is, have we reached the saturation point? Have you reached a point where you have so many of these outlets, so many slot machines, so many tables, and these racinos are like little mini casinos. They have a big room with, I forget, thousands of slot machines in them. So you get to the point where you think, what are we really accomplishing here? I mean, how much loose change, if you will, is really around to support these things?
Right, because there's a lot of people who only like the slots. So the people who are in Akron and Canton, they may just go to the airport or airport area and do their slotting, and at the expense of Cleveland or Columbus. It's certainly not going to benefit those casinos there, and I guess it's great for green or whatever that's going to go, I suppose. But horse racing has really fallen off the map in terms of popularity, and Thistledown, Northfield, they're both struggling to survive, and this may be a boost for them, but I question the long-term ability for them to survive, because not only is Ohio saturated with gambling, but other states around us are too. And I question whether the economic benefits that are promised are actually going to fall through with just this oversaturation.
And the studies are pretty conclusive that, especially with the casinos, but I think that this would also apply to the racinos as well, is you have people that come in to that environment, and everything is designed to keep them inside. They do not want you to come to the casino. I mean, they say this in Cleveland. I know the Cavs owner,
Dan Gilbert.
Gilbert is all talking about how people are going to swarm to downtown, walk around downtown. That's not the philosophy of these big casinos. You come in, you eat there, you stay there, you gamble there, you go home. They want you to spend your money all there. And so that's my fear, is that everybody will get excited about these things, and it actually could hurt the surrounding businesses, the bars and restaurants and the other entertainment venues in the area, because there's only so much money there's only so much discretionary income out there, and once it's gone, it's gone. And if people are spending it all in the casino, and the other thing I got to add here, I'm kind of going on a tear here on gambling, but these electronic slot machines are programmed very, very carefully. They're addictive. They're like the crack cocaine of gambling, because they give you a little bit every now and then, give you a little bit, but they're programmed so the house always wins.
Well, in gambling, that's the case. I think that's why gambling is successful for the people who own gambling casinos or racinos, is that the house does, in fact, always win. But I agree with both of you. I'm not sure that gambling is an economic development tool. And granted, whatever goes in anywhere in the state is going to provide, obviously, jobs. But what impact is it going to have? I mean, a lot of times on this program, we have talked about the addiction of gambling and what that does to families. And that's a concern, and that is a worry. So it's, in the interest of disclosure, my husband is a member of the Akron-Canton Airport Board. So, I know what you guys know in terms of reading this in the newspaper. So it's as I understand, nothing is said at this point. So it's just speculation. We'll have to wait and see.
I got a question, too. Are people from the outside going to come in to Cleveland or Columbus? No, they're not. They have their own casinos in their own states. It's not going to be
It's not a destination.
It will not be a destination spot. I mean, is it better than having an empty Higbee's building on Public Square in Cleveland? Yeah, but I mean, if they're expecting thousands of people there on a daily basis, I just don't see that coming.
A lot of people think that what you'll see is a surge of interest.
Yes.
Initially, everybody will be excited, and then that it'll begin to die down. So the first casualties, if you will be weekdays during the day will start to die. Then you'll have nights during the week. Certain nights during the week will start to slow down, and then the last thing to go is the weekends. That there may be some activity on the weekends, but otherwise it's going to be pretty slow. And everybody else, it seems, is trying to get in on the action here. Everybody's got the fever. So now you've got the VFWs asking. They want to have electronic slot machines too, and they're the charity people want to have these pull tabs. I've never done one, but I guess these little tabs. It's like instant bingo. They want to be able to provide those to bars, and bars would get a cut of the action. And so it's like everybody,
Right, but these casinos are going to hurt, obviously, the VFWs and the churches.
That's precisely.
And also the Ohio Lottery. I mean, if you have a chance to go, play your dollar on a slot, you're going to do that instead of playing the lottery. And those, there's going to be a loss there. And good luck to Dan Gilbert, but I'm not optimistic about this.
Well, that's the thing. These racinos, the slot machines and the racetracks are under the aegis of the Ohio Lottery Commission. They're considered a form of, they're considered part of the Ohio Lottery. I don't know how they quite justify that, but they do. So the money, it kind of creates some interesting budgetary issues because under Ohio law, the profits from the lottery go to the schools. And so there are people that are saying, well, we'd like to peel some of this off for anti-gambling initiatives. We'd like to peel some of it off for this, that. Now, obviously, you can move stuff around in the budget. And everybody in the legislature knows this, that if you have a pot of money over here that you're not supposed to touch, you just move around money over here and you make it all work out.
Or you take money away from them over here.
Right, exactly.
Which is what has happened with schools.
Right.
But.
So, I just think we're, to go back to my original point, I just think we're reaching the saturation point. We're late. Ohio's late moving into this compared to other states. And it's just, to me, it's largely a zero-sum game. Just moves money around. And it also makes, as we've said about the house odds, it tends to make the rich people richer.
Well, the casino in Cleveland, the proponents of it have said that it should help bring bigger industries into Cleveland, i.e. conventions and things like that, because these were one of the things they didn't have enough of. Enough hotels, enough adult gentlemen's clubs, enough casinos and things like that. I don't know that this is going to bring anybody to town necessarily.
It will help probably with some conventions. I mean, it's another facet for them to bring, attract, some conventions. But like I said, every state almost now has, casinos or gambling or slots. This is nothing new. So, it still comes down to the fact that, do you want to come to Ohio and bring your convention here? And
it's not going to be the golf fans during Firestone Week or anything over there.
Yeah,
or the Soapbox Derby Week.
Or the Soapbox Derby Week.
And you've always got, the 800-pound gorilla of Las Vegas. I mean, they've got the huge attractions, the golf, the warm weather. It's hard to compete against that package.
Well, we'll talk about it and see if it does go forward with development on future editions right here on NewsNight.
On NewsNight.net, we cover a broader range of topics than we can on the air in 27 minutes. Be part of the conversation on our Facebook page and at NewsNight.net.
What are your rights if a sex offender moves into your neighborhood? Certainly there are notification rights that you get to know, but can you honestly say, I don't want you living there? That's what a local neighborhood is going through right now. And Phil, you brought their story to the paper today. One sex offender, he's not a sexual predator, and yet they're ready to lead the pitchforks and torches, so to say, to get him out of town. Yeah,
what adds another facet to the story is that it was the local Summit County Disabilities and the
DD Board,
right, who coordinated with a private agency to place this man in a group home with 3 other men, not sex offenders. But he's 20 years old. He was convicted of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor when he was 19. The girl was 14 or 15. But he is a registered sex offender. He's got to register his address for the next 25 years. The residents in this West Akron neighborhood, off of San Run Road, in a neighborhood, probably upper middle class folks, a lot of prosecutors, police, firemen, those sort of folks. A
lot of them with kids?
A lot of kids in the neighborhood. Live there now. They learned about it earlier this month that there was going to be, that they were notified by the sheriff as per the state law, and they're upset about it. They obviously, no one, I think, wants to live next to a sex offender, especially when you have young children. So the question is, but he's living there legally. He's been cleared through his probation officer. He's been cleared through the sheriff's department. There is a small daycare, private daycare home that handles less than 7 kids, and he's within the law. And basically, that's the argument that you're hearing from the DD board and from the RAM Ohio, who helped place him there.
Well, and don't forget, with a group home, there is supervision. It's not like he is there by himself. There is, if I'm not mistaken, 24-hour supervision, making sure that the people who, in fact, are living there are complying with whatever requirements they have to live in that home. So,
let's say nobody wants a sex offender living next door, across the street, but these guys got to live somewhere, and as long as he's following the law, I'm not sure there's much of the neighbors can do about it.
The best the law can do, Steve, is just to notify you and just say, at least you know?
We've got 2 broad trends kind of colliding here. One is this idea that with sex offenders that your sentence is never really over. I mean, usually in the world of criminal justice, you do the crime, then you do your time, and you're done. You don't register, you don't have to report to anybody. You may be a serial burglar or whatever, but you're pretty much you're free to go where you want, live where you want. You don't have to tell anybody, oh, by the way, I'm a rehabilitated felon. We've decided, that these offenders some of them have to register for life. This guy has to register for 25 years.
Well, and don't forget, the recidivism rate for sex offenders is higher than in a lot of instances for other criminals.
I understand that, but we've placed these people, we've extended their sentence for a very, very long period of time. And then we've gotten away from incarcerating people. We don't like to incarcerate people because it's very, very expensive. So we have these other alternatives, which means putting people out into the community. So you got the combination of these two things. I understand that it's understandable that people are upset about this, but I don't know what it would take to, I guess you'd have to change the rules and regulations about group homes. You'd have to start clamping down on where you could put a group home and who could go in what type of group home, and
and to keep it in perspective too, this is not the creepy 60-year-old who preys on 8, 9-year-old children. This was a guy who was convicted of.
He's a tier 2 or whatever.
He's a tier 2. He was a teenager who was, had an encounter of some sort with an ex-girlfriend who was 14 going on 15. So he doesn't meet the definition of your standard pedophile.
And he has some challenges, I understand.
Of course, that's why. Yeah, he has some developmental problems, issues, and that seems to be. That's obviously the reason why he's there.
So is there anything to gain by having a community meeting, getting the council person out there, getting police out there, and everybody just getting riled up when legally you say he's right where he is allowed to be?
Well, you can, that's goes to putting some pressure on the board and the private agency there. I mean, that's about all that you can do is to kind of shame them, I guess, into replacing this guy and moving him somewhere else. But again, it's they're not bound to do that.
But I think drawing publicity to it and drawing attention to it does in fact make the neighborhood more aware of the situation and maybe make them more watchful.
Right. And this county board too has no ability to move him out of there. They don't place him there. They can't remove him from there. This is something between the client and the REM folks. So they have a lease agreement between the client and whatnot. So according to the board, they don't have the ability to move him out anyway.
Sheriff Alexander said he has 1,000 sex offenders in Summit County, I think was the last number he used. And on any given day, he's got 2 guys that can keep track of him.
Right. And a lot of them do not properly report their address anyway. So you really don't know where they are. I mean, some of them just stop registering. And they, like you're saying, they don't have enough people to track them down. Other people, their address is old, and they never bother to change it. They go move somewhere else. I'm not, this classification of sexual predator, the top classification, is pretty serious stuff. There's no doubt about it. But the other tiers, you get into offenses that are probably not as prone to habitual repeat behavior as Jody's talking about. Certainly there's a class of people who are serious offenders who do have this compulsion. And they tend to act over and over again. But when you get down to these lower tiers, it gets complicated. The other part of the pressure here might be to change the law, but I don't know how you do it. I mean, these people got to go somewhere. In our present system, I mean, we've had various cities and towns pass laws about, a sexual predator can't live within so many miles of a school or church. And then, you have these towns that go through all this and they map all this out, and like you have maybe a bridge abutment on the edge of town that is not covered by these circles, And so, I mean, you really can't. I mean, these people going to live in tents in the woods somewhere? I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah, it does become a scarlet letter at some point that they've paid their price. As you said, their sentence is never really over because this follows them on everywhere. And yet we don't have any kind of notification if a serial burglar moves in next to you. Or someone who has a history of other kind of violent crimes. Other than your TV is gone, and you wish you had known out there. But with so many problems with the sheriff's office funding as it is, are they ever really going to be able to get this back? To be able to keep track of these guys?
That's the problem. We love to pass laws, and we love to put people in jail. We love to track people, and then when it comes time to paying for the horsepower
of such,
to follow it, we're somehow reluctant.
The other thing too, I'm sorry, real quick. The other thing is that I think it just detracts from the real problem here, and the fact is that most sex offenses are committed against a child by someone the child knows or is related to, and very few cases of a stalker or some creep coming out of the woods. And those are rare cases.
Okay, we got a quick 30 seconds. Jody, I want to give you 20 of it to tell us about next week.
Okay, next week we have a special program. We're going to talk about two amazing programs in Summit County. South Street Ministries, Dwayne and Lisa Krabs moved their family 15 years ago to an inner-city Akron neighborhood, and they've made a big impact on the neighborhood. And then Clearview Hope, and Hope stands for Helping Our Patriots Everywhere. It's a innovative program at Clearview Golf Course, sponsored by Renee Powell, to help women veterans through a rehabilitative golf program.
Okay.
And it's a model program around the country.
All right, Jody, thank you so much. Jody, Phil, Steve, thank you as well. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you soon for Newsnight. Good night.